So here's the demo video of the FSE Chatroom application. So here we are at the index page, and we can type in our username and password. If this user is not registered, have not been registered, if you click login, it will block us, and then we can just register it, and this will automatically create an account and log us in. And here we are at the chat room page. We can see others post. There have already been others posting in this chat room, and we can post our new postings, just like that. Of course, others can also see our postings. If we log in as another user, our new posting have been registered there, and it comes with the name of the user who's posting it and a timestamp, and the history is dynamically updated. So if we do it again, you can see here on the other user's page, it is dynamically updated. We have two good mornings here. We also got a nicely logout button. You could just leave the room by clicking the logout button, and you don't need to really close the page to leave. And all the histories here are stored in a database. So if we just close the backend and reopen it, if we log in again, all our messages are still there. So here's a diagram of the code structure which reveals how components have been interacting with each other in the application. So here's how things will flow. After user click the login button with a username and the password inputted, the front end would firstly to do a basic validation to ensure user is not inputting an empty string or something, and then would send a post HTTP request to the backend with the username and password in the body. The backend would then try to query a user with provided username and password from the database. If none was found, a 500 will be sent back to the front end along with an error message saying that username password pair is not found. If the target user is found in the database, the backend would then generate a random string as a session ID, save in memory, and respond the session ID back to the front. On the other hand, if the register button is hit, the front end would then send a put request. The backend would also try to query with such username from database. If some user was found, a 500 will be sent back to the front end along with an error message saying that the username was used by someone else. If none was found, a 200 will be responded, and then the front end would automatically do the login process again, as if the login button was clicked. So receiving the session ID at the front, the page would store the username and session ID in the session storage of its page, and jump to the chatroom page. Chatroom page would then use that stored session ID and the username to connect with the back via WebSocket. But if none was found in the session storage, or the back disconnect the socket immediately after connection due to mismatch of session ID, the page would jump back to the index with session storage cleared. If all is good, then the backend would send all history messages via WebSocket immediately after login, and the socket instance would also be registered as a listener for new messages. And that brings us to the topic of sending new messages. When the user types in something in the chat box and hit the send button, the message will be sent to the back via WebSocket, and the backend would then broadcast this message to all listener sockets after saving a copy in database with a timestamp and a user ID attached. Then all users currently logged in will receive the message and update correspondingly. When user hit the logout button, a logout event will be sent to the backend, and all socket listeners under that username and under that session ID would be filtered out from the list of listeners and be disconnected. So that's a disconnect event sent to the front. And front end would then also clear the session storage and jump back to the index page.